The little girl had already made 3 adults cry that morning, thrown a crystal vase against a marble wall, and sent a private tutor running out of the mansion in tears. By noon, 2 security guards had quit. By evening, even the housekeeper refused to go near her bedroom. Everyone in the mansion feared 8-year-old Charlotte Whitmore, the only daughter of billionaire businessman Richard Whitmore. But the next morning, a quiet janitor named Samuel Carter walked into her room carrying nothing but a mop, a bucket, and the calm eyes of a man who had survived things far more dangerous than an angry child. What nobody knew was that the janitor had once served as a Navy SEAL, and the reason he had taken a cleaning job was connected to a wound he had carried silently for years. If you believe kindness can change a life and that people deserve second chances, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories. Because sometimes, the person everyone overlooks is the very person capable of saving someone who feels completely lost. The Whitmore estate stood on a hill outside Boston, Massachusetts, surrounded by tall iron gates, perfectly trimmed gardens, and cameras that watched every corner of the property. Richard Whitmore had built his fortune through technology and real estate, but despite having everything money could buy, he could not buy peace for his daughter. Charlotte had changed after her mother, Grace, died suddenly 2 years earlier. Before the tragedy, she had been bright, affectionate, and full of questions. Afterward, something inside her seemed to collapse. She stopped sleeping through the night. She stopped attending school regularly. She pushed away anyone who tried to comfort her. Therapists came and went. Nannies lasted days. Tutors lasted hours. One nanny had been scratched badly enough to need stitches. Another had resigned after Charlotte locked herself inside the library for almost 6 hours. Richard responded by hiring the best specialists money could find, but every expert eventually reached the same conclusion. Charlotte did not need another person trying to control her. She needed someone who could make her feel safe. Samuel Carter arrived at the estate on a cold Monday morning wearing a faded gray uniform and carrying a small lunchbox. He was 52, broad-shouldered, quiet, and walked with a slight stiffness in his left leg. Nobody knew much about him. His application simply said that he had served in the United States Navy, worked several maintenance jobs, and wanted a quiet position after moving to Massachusetts. The estate manager assumed he was an ordinary janitor looking for steady work. Samuel never corrected him. He preferred being invisible. On his first day, he noticed things most people ignored. The security cameras were positioned too low near the eastern gate. One of the back doors did not close completely unless someone pulled it hard. The mansion's emergency lights had not been tested in months. And most importantly, he noticed that Charlotte never looked directly at anyone when they approached her. She watched their hands instead. Samuel recognized that behavior immediately. It was the behavior of someone constantly preparing for danger. That afternoon, Samuel was cleaning the hallway outside Charlotte's bedroom when he heard a loud crash. A vase shattered against the wall, followed by a frightened housekeeper running downstairs. Samuel slowly entered the hallway and saw Charlotte sitting on the floor surrounded by broken glass. Her face was wet with tears, but she was trying desperately not to cry. A young therapist stood several feet away, frozen with fear. Samuel did not rush toward the child. He did not raise his voice. He simply placed the mop against the wall and sat down on the floor several feet away. He stayed there silently. Charlotte looked at him suspiciously. She seemed to be waiting for him to yell, threaten her, or call her father. But Samuel did none of those things. After several minutes, he quietly began picking up the larger pieces of glass while keeping his distance. When he noticed a tiny shard near Charlotte's bare foot, he gently pointed toward it instead of grabbing her. She looked down, moved her foot away, and for the first time that day, she listened to someone. The next morning, Samuel found Charlotte sitting alone in the kitchen before sunrise. She was staring at an untouched bowl of cereal. Samuel did not ask why she was awake. He simply made himself a cup of coffee and sat at the opposite end of the table. After a while, Charlotte pushed the cereal toward him. Samuel smiled and thanked her, but instead of eating it, he added some fruit from a plate and quietly placed it back in front of her. It became their strange little routine. He never forced conversation. She never had to explain herself. Over the following weeks, something extraordinary happened. Charlotte began following Samuel around the estate. She watched him repair broken shelves, polish floors, and fix loose cabinet handles. One afternoon, she found him struggling to move a heavy box. Without being asked, she helped push it. Samuel thanked her as if she had done something important. That small moment mattered more than anyone realized. Richard began noticing the change. His daughter was still difficult, but she was sleeping more. She stopped throwing things. She began eating regular meals. Most surprising of all, she started smiling again. Richard wanted to reward Samuel with more money, but Samuel politely refused. He told him that Charlotte did not need a reward system. She needed consistency. Then one rainy evening, everything changed. Samuel was taking trash toward the service entrance when he heard a strange metallic sound near the garage. He stopped immediately. His instincts, buried beneath years of silence, came alive. He noticed that one of the security cameras had been turned away from the driveway. A black vehicle was parked beyond the hedges where no visitor was supposed to be. Samuel's posture changed. The quiet janitor disappeared, and the trained soldier returned. He moved through the estate with remarkable speed, alerted security, locked the main doors, and checked every access point. Within minutes, police were called. The vehicle disappeared before officers arrived, but they found evidence that someone had been watching the mansion for several days. Richard was shaken. Charlotte was terrified. That night, a frightened Charlotte found Samuel in the laundry room. She asked him why he knew what to do. Samuel remained silent for a long moment before finally admitting that he had served as a Navy SEAL for many years. He had completed dangerous missions overseas, lost close friends, and eventually left the service after an operation that had taken the lives of 2 men under his command. He never talked about it because he did not want anyone to see him as a hero. Charlotte stared at him with tears in her eyes. She told him that she thought he understood because he was broken too. Those words struck Samuel harder than any bullet ever had. He realized Charlotte was not misbehaving because she was spoiled. She was grieving. She was angry because everyone around her kept trying to fix her pain instead of understanding it. She had lost her mother and believed that if she loved someone again, she might lose them too. Samuel began teaching her small things. How to breathe when fear became overwhelming. How to count objects in a room when panic took over. How to tell someone when she needed help. He taught her that courage did not mean never being afraid. It meant being afraid and still choosing not to give up. Richard eventually understood something too. He had spent 2 years trying to replace Charlotte's mother with therapists, tutors, vacations, expensive gifts, and security. What his daughter had really needed was her father. One evening, Richard sat beside Charlotte and finally allowed himself to talk about Grace. They cried together. For the first time in years, Charlotte leaned against her father's shoulder instead of pulling away. Months passed. Charlotte returned to school. She joined an art class and began painting pictures of oceans, ships, and families holding hands. One painting showed a little girl standing beside a man in a gray uniform beneath a bright blue sky. She gave it to Samuel. At the bottom, she had written a simple sentence. "You stayed." Samuel stared at those 2 words for a long time. They meant more to him than any medal he had ever received. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes people can heal, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need a little hope today. A year later, Charlotte stood on a small stage at a charity event organized by her father. In front of hundreds of guests, she spoke about grief, kindness, and the people who quietly help us when we are at our lowest. She did not call Samuel a hero because of his military service. She called him a hero because he had sat beside a lonely little girl when everyone else had walked away. Before the evening ended, Charlotte ran through the crowd and hugged Samuel tightly. He closed his eyes and held her carefully, remembering all the men he had lost and wondering what his fallen friends might have thought if they could see him now. He had spent years believing his greatest purpose was behind him. He was wrong. Sometimes life does not give us a second chance by changing our past. Sometimes it gives us a second chance by placing someone broken in front of us and asking us to stay. And Samuel stayed. If you reach this part of the story, comment, "I believe in second chances" below. Let those words be a reminder that kindness does not always need money, power, or recognition. Sometimes it only needs one person willing to sit quietly beside someone who is hurting and refuse to walk away. Because Charlotte did not need a billionaire to save her. She needed someone who understood pain. And the janitor everyone overlooked became the man who helped her find her way back home.